Hey everybody, welcome, welcome. This is Julie Maxon, the main stamper, and welcome to our very first live Make It Monday in 2022. I am back. It's been a couple of weeks. Been under the weather, kind of going through the same experiences in life that most people are right now with the flu going around. But I am back. I do have a cough drop in my mouth just in case I start coughing. So I'm working around that, but I am determined we are going to create a fantastic card tonight. So a couple weeks ago I did an unboxing and with the new products from the spring, the January to June 2022 mini, which is live right now along with Celebration. And the Honeybee card, the Honeybee stamp set, was hands down like people had the most interest in our little Honeybee home stamp set and bundle. So that's what we're going to be using tonight to create our Make It Monday card. And also, this is a fun one for me. I had to do a little extra homework to recreate this card from the catalog because I am going to show you tonight how to use a mask, a decorative mask, just like it's an embossing folder. And this was new to me. I had never done this before. I do have a few workarounds. I don't quite have every product that I needed to recreate this card from the catalog. So I'm going to share some workarounds, and I'm sure that you guys at home are doing the same thing every time that you're creating cards. You don't always have every product on hand to make an exact replica of something maybe you're looking at in the catalog or on Pinterest, but you guys make it work. We all make it work. We have different supplies and we work it out. So that's what I'm doing with you tonight. So without further ado, we're going to go over to my workspace and we're going to create a beautiful card together. So let's get over there, and here we are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the products that we're using as well. So we do have the Honeybee Home stamp set, and this was a very it's a pretty popular stamp set. These little honeybees are adorable. Now there are 3 of them, as you can see in here. They all have different orientations on the way that they're flying or on the paper, and I'm going to bring in the dies here as well. So here are your honeybee dies. So there's 3 of them to cover each of the little bees, the honeybees. And then of course we've got dies that are going to cut out our flowers. We've got some extra leafy dies in here as well. And these dies are called the Honeybee Blooms dies. So we're going to take a little bit of a closer look here at the spring catalog, which is fantastic. I hope you guys are loving it as much as I am. So I was able to share the cover before. Now that it's live, we can share all of the good things in the catalog. Now the Heart and Home Suite is on page 58 and 59, and it kind of shows you some of the samples with the paper and the bundles, and you turn the page and you've got on page 60 and then 61 more in depth about the actual stamp set and bundles. So the honeybees, which are super popular, are not on any of these samples right here, which kind of was a little disappointing to me. They show the flowers, they show different ways to use, and you know, they're nice and everything, but where are the bees, right? We want to see the bees. Now, if you flip to the end of the book and you look at where the bundles are listed, they're going to share with you brand new samples. I can get this picked up. And so on page 80, where they're showing the actual bundle, you're going to see a card, and it has the little honeybee in it. So of course I had to recreate this card, which I'm going to do with you tonight. So here's the card that we're creating. So it was on page 80 of the spring catalog with our Honeybee Home stamp set. Now I'll be talking a little bit about some of the products that I'm mixing in as I go here, since I don't have quite everything. Now this is a cling stamp set, so it is the red rubber. I have some of them mounted, some of them are not mounted yet, but there's still time for all of that good stuff. Now, the cardstock that we're using is Bumblebee. Of course it is, right? We're making a honeybee card. We're starting with a bumblebee base. So this is a piece of 8.5 by 11 cut in half. So it's 5.5 by 4.25 when it's scored in half and folded. This is our A2 card base. So the first layer we've got here is 5.5. So it's the same height as our card, and it's 4 inches. So it almost covers the entire front here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to work with the mask. So on this piece right here, you can see that it's a little bit darker, and maybe you can see that it's it looks like it's an embossing folder, right? And I scoured the catalog when I first was looking to see how this card was made. I could not find a embossing folder that would go with this, and I I wondered if it was a mask, and yes, indeed, it is a mask that they used for this card. This comes from the Basic Pattern Decorative Masks. This is in the annual catalog. So you get 4 masks. You've got polka dots, you've got trees, you've got a Victorian look, and then you've got this almost like a mosaic look. And this is the one that we're going to be using today. And we're going to use this, and we're going to actually create an embossed piece with this mask. Now these are like vinyl or acetate type masks. They're great for sponging or spritzing color. You can do a lot of different things. In fact, I have 4 different blog posts on these exact masks. So if you're looking for more information on them, check out the main stamper and look for decorative masks. And you'll have more information there. But today we're going to be using it in an embossed kind of way. This was totally new and different to me. Now, in the annual catalog, they have impression mats, and that's on page 153. I don't have the impression mats, not the new ones. I have some older mats, and I'm not sure if the thickness is the same or not. So here's the impression mats. It's in with all the die cutting machine. This tells us that there is a thick impression mat and a thin impression mat. Now I don't have them yet, so I kind of look to see what do I have, and these are the older Big Shot embossing mats. This came as a set of 3, so some of you may have this. There was like a hard plastic plate, and then there was a thicker gray, kind of like foam. It's not really foamy, but it's kind of rubbery. And then a very thin, like super thin, like I actually ruined mine a little bit here, thin mat. So I'm not really sure if the thickness of this is up to par, because I did use it and I felt like my impression could have been deeper. It did work. So I am going to report back, and next time I put an order in, I'm going to order the new mats because I do want to try this out and see if it makes a difference with a thicker mat. So that was my first kind of like item that I had to pretend I had, but I didn't really have. Now we're going to set this up. This is going to be an interesting little sandwich. Let me bring in the Big Shot here. And we are going to use our base plate. We're not going to use number 2 plate, which is our die cutting plate. We're not going to use this one, so I can set that aside. We are going to use both of the clear plates. And on top of the clear plate, so now I'm going to set up my thicker rubber mat here with my cardstock. And I'm going to line this up, this little decorative mask here. So I just have to figure out how best I want to line it up side to side and all that good stuff. Actually, I'm going to pull this and look at it this way for a second because I feel like doing it sideways, I'm getting it crooked. And this definitely has one of those patterns where you kind of want it to be straight. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but wouldn't it be nice if it was, right? All right, so I feel like that's pretty straight. So I'm going to put this clear mat over top, and we're going to run it through. And I hope that I set up my sandwich right. I only did this once, and I did this earlier today. So if I didn't set it up right, we're going to have to start over. All right, so here, and here it is, yes. So it did get embossed. I'm going to raise it up a little bit and see, you can kind of see it's a little bit bumpier, right? It's not the smoothest paper anymore. So that is how you can use your masks to emboss your paper, just like it was an embossing folder. Now, again, I don't feel like this is a very deep embossed look. I'm not sure if it's the thickness of my mat. It could possibly be. But if you have these kind of different mats at home and you want to experiment with some decorative masks, now these are not expensive and they're a lot of fun to use. Highly recommend them. So we are going to now make this look a little bit darker, because right now I'm bringing in Bumblebee ink and one of the blender brushes. Right now you can't really see too much of the detail, but once you start adding the ink on, and it's going to pick up the higher spots of the cardstock here. So I'm just brushing this on, and I'm only really focusing on the outside edges or so, because the rest of it is going to get covered up. So there's no sense in wasting time or ink on something that you're not going to see, unless this is your therapy and rubbing ink on paper just calms you down. Maybe it's something that you really enjoy doing. Then I say ink away, right? This is pretty good therapy. But for this card and for this presentation, I really only need to focus on the outside edges. And these little blending brushes are so nice. They're just So easy to use. And you can see all of the center here, what I didn't touch. It's a nice bright little center. And then I'm hoping that you can also see, if I turn it in the light a little bit more, the adding of the ink onto the higher edges. Now, obviously it's getting ink on all of it, not just the higher edges, but it definitely brings out the embossed look of something that we did not even use an embossing folder for. I just thought that was super genius when I did the research on that to try to figure out what was going on. So look at your masks, because they can now be embossing folders on top of all the other things that we use our masks for. And I just think that is really the coolest thing ever. I'm just going to add some adhesive here to the back of this. This is going to go on my card front. Like I said, it's going to hit the top and the bottom. It's the same 5.5 inches. And there's just really about maybe 1/8 of an inch or so on each side. It should not flow over to the inside. And if it does, you can definitely trim from the back side. The nice thing here is that this is tone on tone, so it's very forgiving. If you're newer to card making, using tone on tone helps you to hide some of the imperfections that occur as we go along. So there is that part. And now we're going to do a little bit of stamping and some blender coloring. I'm going to bring in some scrap papers. I got all kinds of scraps here. We're going to use Memento ink, and we do need to have 2 of each of the flowers. I'm just going to ink this up and stamp one, and I'm going to do another one. These are just scraps that I had laying around. And this is a nice little kind of a coral bell. I'm not really sure. I'm terrible with like what the names of flowers are, but this one has nice little trumpet flowers on it. Super cute. This one looks more like a Gerber daisy, or maybe the echinacea. And the beauty part is you can color them in whatever color you like, and they can be pretty much anything. Now for these cards that I do on Mondays, I'm typically recreating live with you exact replicas of what's in the catalog. And then sometimes I have a good play with different colors and change it up a little bit. We're going to bring in Pear Pizzazz ink, and we're going to play with blender pens. Now they come in a set of 3 when you buy them. These are awesome because you can use these over and over, and you can get some nice little color. You can squeeze your ink pad before you open it. You can squeeze this really hard. I mean, it takes a good amount of effort to get some of the ink to come off the top and go into the pad here, but it can be done. And if it can't be done, then I suggest that you get out your re-inker and re-ink your ink pad so it's a little bit wetter. That'll make it easier to squeeze some ink out there and get it into the open well here on your stamp ink pad, your ink pad, so that you can pick up some ink. Now the blender pens have a little bit, they're like wet with Versamark. There's Versamark in the barrel. So they're kind of an application that mixes with the ink here, and you can use it for some quick coloring. It's nice because it's not as bold as a marker or a blender pen. Those leave like really deep color, and I feel like it's a little bit smoother than the colored pencils. I mean, those are all applications that you could certainly use with these open stamps. Any stamps that you're coloring, those are all great options. Of course, there's also watercoloring if you like to use the water painters. There's lots of different ways. Now, what's nice about this is that it goes on really fast, and you don't have to be super exact because it gives it a little bit more of a watercolor look if you go off the lines a little bit and into the white. So it's okay to blend and blur a little bit. So don't be afraid to get outside the lines, because it just gives it a very artistic look. And it also gives you more freedom to not be so worried that it's not perfect, right? So here, again, I'm going to lift this up a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see that it's kind of gone off a little bit. Now, when you're done getting, done with your ink, Might be hard to see here, but you're going to rub this until you don't see any color coming off, any transfer of color, and then you can reuse this on another color. And we're going to do this is petal pink. We're going to do petal pink next. So again, I'm just going to try to squeeze some of that in there. If you don't have them there, I have a little bit more, so that's kind of nice. I did re-ink all of these today because I needed help getting the ink to transfer over. So I'm just going to color in some petal pink here real quick on the petals over here. And keep in mind, when you first grab this color off of your ink pad, the first little bit's going to be dark. So maybe start in the middle and then fan out a little bit if you want to create some highs and lows. But you can see that these color in real quickly and real nice. And I think that should be green down there. I think I missed some green. I might come back through here and touch up some green here real quick. So of course I'm already thinking about different colors because I want to make another card and change up my colors. If you guys have any suggestions, throw them in the comments because I haven't done it yet. And maybe I'll look at what you're thinking I should try next. And we might try that. All right, so that's the petal pink. I'm just going to scribble this off a little bit. So you can see how quickly they color up. I'm going to get the green back out again because somewhere over here I missed some green leaves while I was coloring. Now these get kind of layered on the card. I'm not even sure if those green leaves would have shown or not, but just in case. All right, that takes care of that. And we're moving on to the bumblebee. So again, you can squeeze your pad, squeeze it together, right? And try to get some ink to come. Now I had ink on here before, so this isn't all new ink, but it does refresh some of the stuff that has been on here. So I'm going to go ahead and do these flowers real quick. And again, I'm kind of scribbling them, filling in kind of like a poof all around the petals. I'm not getting like super exact. And fortunately, that's what the sample looks like too. So if you take a look in the book at the sample, they definitely kind of just scribbled this color on pretty quickly. This is a nice card because it doesn't have too many ink colors. Just the 3 with the memento ink. That's kind of nice. You don't have to grab out every ink that you own or worry about having every ink that you need. And now we're going to do Mr. Bumblebee here. We're going to do his base. And I'm going to try to scribble off some of this yellow and go in a little bit paler on the rest of him. Maybe a little bit more here. And you definitely want to let the bee dry a little bit before you color him, because the black can, I see it on this a little bit, the black can blend together, kind of watercolor-ish, and you won't have quite the same image that you had previously. Now you want to make sure that you keep these tightly capped because, like I said, there is Versamark ink in here. They are wet tips, so if you were to leave it open, it would dry out and you wouldn't be able to use it. All right, now that I have my pretty coloring done, I'm just going to chop these apart so that I can run them through my die cutting machine. And move some things aside here so that I can bring that back in again. Here we go. Now this time we're setting up for die cutting. So we want our number 1 plate. We want our number 2 die cutting plate. Get rid of this gray mat. We don't need that anymore. And then we want our clear plate on top, followed by our next clear plate. And I'm looking for my dies, which I might have buried somewhere. Here we go. All right, so I did pull out a little bit of washi tape. I wanted to show you earlier. I was die cutting them and they kind of jumped a little bit. So you can kind of see that there's an awful lot of white. Like this one's terrible. This one is just totally a throwaway piece now that I did all that fine coloring, and now I have to throw it away because the die cut, it jumped while it was in the machine. And I know you guys can relate to that because it's so frustrating when you think you're going to have a beautiful die cut, did all the coloring and you're good to go. So I have a little bit of washi tape, that I'm using to secure my dies onto the paper so that they die cut where I want them to be. Definitely when you're lining these up, you want to be able to see the stem at the bottom of the die. I know it's kind of far away, but whoops. And then I shifted my die terribly. Okay, we're gonna try it right there. So those should be okay. I'm gonna send these through. And then we're gonna do it again. So you do have to repeat if you want more than one of the images on your card. Hopefully we're good. Hopefully we didn't shift too much. So this one will work. Grab my die and get that back over here. And I lost my other one. I just got the paper, scrap paper. Let's see how it looks. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. All right, so now we're gonna repeat. We're gonna do this one more time. And my washi tape is kind of getting abused here. I do always have more, but I try to reuse it. I mean, it is reusable. You can see it's kind of falling apart as I go. Let me get in my other little flower here and get this one done. Again, we're lining up the stems here at the bottom. I want to be able to see the stem. Okay. And we're going to run these back through one more time for these two. Okay. And I'll clean those up later. That one did really nice this time. I'm really pleased with that. Let's see how this guy looks. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so now we have our four little, I can see a little piece there. So we have our 4 flowers. We still need Mr. Bumblebee, and I need a scrap of Pear Pizzazz and this die right here. This is going to give me the little bit of greens that I'm looking for in this card. And the Bumblebee is going to be the die that looks kind of like a paper airplane. I feel like this one looks kind of like a paper airplane. There are 3 different Bumblebee dies, like I said. They all cover the different shapes of bumblebees. So I'm going to go ahead and put these through, and then we'll be done with the die cutting part. Move this out of the way. And hopefully we're good. Oh yeah, we got a nice little bumblebee here. And then we've got our green. Now I've noticed that the green here is super thin and delicate. So be very careful when you pull it off. This is a very thin little green, which could fall apart. And this is where you would bring in your die brush and help to get rid of these little pieces that are stuck. Kind of poke out the little holes here. But this is a very skinny little green. So here we have our green. We are done with the die cutting. Let me get rid of some of my messes, not lose my dies. That's important. Get rid of my scraps. All right, so we can get busy on the rest of our assembly as long as I can find the rest of my papers. All right, so this is again, another piece of Bumblebee cardstock. This is 3 inches wide by 4 1/8 long. I always experiment with the size of cardstock to try to recreate as close as I can what they did in the catalog. All right, so we're just gonna play with these for a second. And I always like to do tear and tape for things like this little green, this little piece of green here, because this is super skinny and I just want to get him tucked down at least somewhere. I'm going to bring in the green glue though and use that for the rest of my flowers. Just a little bit of glue on each one here. And I'm just going to start building my little bouquet. Similar in imagery to how they did it in the catalog, which just makes it nice because it's easy to kind of follow along and get that done without having to think too much. So each of these flowers has plenty of spot on the back to add some adhesive. I'm going to add some right here. So you can see that we are pretty much covering up that little piece of tear and tape that we use to cover up and keep those little, that little green stem down. So I'm just making sure that I have that kind of covered. And each time you make this, it may be a little bit different. Your arrangement might be a little bit different. I'm just going to push this, flip this over and then push from the back to get all of the tape secured onto there. So here's the two little pieces I've got going on. Now we need to stamp a piece of petal pink. This is 5/8 by 3 inches. And I found that that was the right size. So if you go 3/4 of an inch, you can see how much bigger this is. It's too big, it's too wide. So I always try to find the smallest possible width for the sentiments, and 5/8 actually worked really nicely here for the stamp that says "You're the nicest." And it's the nicest, obviously, the imagery on it kind of starts small and then gets wider at the end. I think that it's easiest to line this up straight if you focus on your "the." So if you're focusing on this part to be straight, it's, you know, don't try to worry about the nicest, because that would really be the hardest part to line up straight. That takes care of all of our stamping. So let me move that over, and we are going to bring in our next item that I am filling in for. So I have some Wonder of the Season ribbon. This is old ribbon. It came probably in holiday catalogs. It's got a nice shaded spruce, and it had some gold twine. In the catalog sample, they use the Simply Elegant trim, which is a silver and gold trim. So basically it's the same thing, right? It's gold trim. I didn't have exactly what I needed, but I had something close. So I'm making that work too. And this always, when I'm looking at the cards and recreating, I'm looking for the holes in my supplies, like what don't I have that I thought I had or that I would use again if I'm creating a card here and really enjoy what I've got and know that I'm like, yep, I would definitely like this gold ribbon here on the side as I struggle here to make a bow. All right, so there we go. I'm just going to trim this up a little bit, close it up a little bit, tighten it here and there. I like to make my bows while my string is still attached, because less waste that way, right? Just a lot less waste. Now this is still loose, so I can move this up and down if I need to. And basically what I'm trying to do is I want to cover up a lot of the string here, but also I want to catch the bottom of my stems for my flowers, because I don't want that to show. So I'm just going to move this maybe down just a smidge, tighten that up just a little bit more. Okay, now to put this on, I'm not going to adhere any of this. I'm just going to grab some tear and tape, and I'm going to put this on the back of my sentiment, and then I'm going to let this catch this gold ribbon and stick to the paper. In theory, right, when I can get the tape off. I took a couple weeks off, and I'm just like, my skills diminished here a little bit, I think, like struggling here. All right, so I am going to put this, bring this ribbon down a little bit right here. I'm going to put this on here so that a little bit of this stays over here, and it kind of comes off the paper over here a little bit. And when I have it just where I want it, I'm going to press this down kind of nicely. So it's going to go right over top of that twine. It's going to kind of keep everything secured. And as you can see on the sample over here, it does come off the edge here a little bit. So that's really nice. And we're going to bring in some dimensionals right here, dimensionals. And we're going to put 5. I came up with 5 earlier. So top, bottom, all 4 corners here, and then I just put 1 in the middle. I felt like that was enough. I like to be frugal with my dimensionals, so they go a long way. Just enough, not too much. And then this is going to go on our card front. Obviously, you want to make sure it's opening in the right direction before you put anything on here that has orientation. And I'm going to just put this right here, catching all of those. Look how beautiful. Now we have this little bumblebee here, and I decided to use a mini dimensional to pop the bumblebee on so that he has a little bit more presence. So I'm just going to take that off of there. and he's gonna stick on here. And the beauty part is that he can come off the paper here, off of this plain bumblebee paper as well. So he's good to go. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some embellishments. And I do not have the embellishments they used. They used Genial Gems. And I am using Playing with Patterns resin dots. So again, I found some something that would kind of work, look kind of similar to what they used in the catalog. I am definitely not using as many as they used. They used quite a few of the other items, but I am not using quite as many. These I think are maybe even a little bit bigger as well. So I'm just going to put a few on here, here, and here, and call that beautifully good. So here is my original, and here is the one that I just made live with you guys, and they turned out pretty much the exact same. So there we go. Wow, we did it. I did it. So that was our card today. I'm looking to see. Hi, Linda's on. Jess missed some of it. Gold ribbon is still available. It is in the annual catalog though, Jess. It is on page, I wrote this down because I used different ribbon. Page 140, and it's called Simply Elegant Trim. So the trim that you would get from the annual catalog is a spool of the gold and a spool of the silver, and that's fantastic because a lot of times, you know, you're creating something shiny and pretty and then you have gold and silver, and I love that. So I didn't have the exact ribbon. It's going on my list. I always have like kind of like a shopping list, like, right, that you leave on your refrigerator, like, oh, I'm low on this, or I want to get this. So I'm adding that ribbon. I'm adding the impression mats, the gems, things that I didn't have. I'm like, okay, I want to try to get these in so that I can use them. So yeah, and these are great add-ons too. If you're putting together an order during celebration and you're trying to hit that $50 mark, so each time you hit $50 an increment, you get that free celebration item. So this is a great time to add in. Maybe you're getting a bundle and you need to add in another $12. So look for the ribbons, look for the blender pens, look for an adhesive, you know, small things that help you to get to $50 so that you can get another item for free. And again, those are cumulative. So if you spend $100, you're going to get 2 of the $50 items or 1 of the $100 items. All the celebration goodies are available while in supply through the end of February. So you've got some time, but it is a fun time to shop for those little additional items that you need. Take them off your little grocery shopping list so that you can create an order that's going to get you a freebie. So yeah, that was our card tonight. I'm super excited that we got together again. I know it's been a couple weeks, so you guys probably did forget that I try to do a live on a Monday, but we did it. And if you're watching replay, that's awesome. Say hello, and then tell me a suggestion for, so obviously this card is Bumblebee, and we use the petal pink, and then the bumblebee flowers, but I'd like to recreate this with a different color. And I'm not sure, blue, purple, pink. What do you think, guys? Help me out a little bit. Give me some ideas and thoughts, because I am going to try to recreate this in another color scheme so we can vote on which one we like the best. That would be on Wednesday over on Positive Paper Crafters. So we've got our half hour here. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the mask technique. Let me know if that's something new and exciting for you. I always like to kind of follow along with you to see what you know that maybe I didn't know. This was new to me. So anyway, I had a really great time with you tonight. Thank you so much for taking a little bit and watching with me. Make sure you come back next Monday. I'm going to be back at it here every Monday night, 8 o'clock. I'm going to do another live card making demonstration. And until next time, stay inspired, create something beautiful, and share the love. Bye.